The Holy Grail of Eris Volume Review. The villainous genre is usually coupled with an isekai storyline of characters being reincarnated in worlds they were aware of in their past life, but recently the trend has started to shift to telling villainous stories without the isekai element, which brings us to one of Ren Press's new debuts. The Holy Grail of Eris Volume 1. Does it prove an interesting entry in the genre? Let's find out. The story follows Constant Grail, knows Connie to her friends and family who had just caught her fiance, Neil Bronson, cheating her with noblewoman Pamela Francis at the ball the two are attending. Worse things still, Pamela manipulates one of her followers into setting Connie up to make it seem as strong she's a thief, and then accuse her in front of everyone present. The Grail family are in deep debt, thanks to Connie's father, who is sincere and honest to a fault, often finding himself taken advantage of because of her father. Sincerity is an important part of Connie's beliefs. She can even imagine stealing from someone and finds herself about to pass out from the stress of being falsely accused. Wanting nothing more than to be safe, Connie cries out for help and her plea is heard by a ghost known as Scarlet Castiel, a woman who was executed for wicked deeds 10 years ago. Of course, Scarlet isn't willing to help Connie out of his tricky situation without something in return. What Scarlet truly desires is revenge of those who lead her to be executed, and since it was only 10 years ago, most of those people are still alive and happily living their lives in high society. Connie readily agrees since anything is better than the position she's currently in, but will she come to regret this decision after the fact? What follows is a mystery story, with Scarlet giving Connie information about her past and then sending our protagonist out to investigate. Being a ghost, Scarlet can't do anything but hover around Connie and something possesses her, so she's completely dependent on her help. However, having a life of honesty, Connie is absolutely terrible at lying, which often leads to her being caught out by those she's investigating. Luckily, a love interest is introduced later in the book who helps Connie out with some of this. He also happens to be someone Scarlet can stand and doesn't trust, so that causes just as many problems as it solves for the two. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the Holy Grail of Eris is that Connie is not a villainess. That's definitely Scarlet. You could argue that Connie has become a villainess during her actions investigating those who betrayed Scarlet, but inherently, she's more of a good girl protagonist type who normally exists to doom the villainess. Having these two together from the start certainly gives us an interesting dynamic compared to other titles like this, and I enjoy watching Connie change for her interactions with Scarlet, particularly the fact she becomes far less naive as the story goes on. The big downside to this volume is that, well, it has a defined beginning, middle, and end point. I feel that the end was very flat. It wraps up without having accomplished or concluded anything of real note and hopes the reader will be continue reading the further installments. It's just wasn't a good stopping point in giving this is already quite a long book of 250 pages. That's a negative against it for most readers unless you are very invested in the cast. Perhaps the fault for this lies with this origin as a web novel, since I've seen other light novels based on web novels that similarly end unsatisfyingly volume to volume, but usually that's not the case in the first volume, or it could simply be because of the fact this is Tokiwa's first published work. Either way, it's a shame because I like the world and characters author Kojiro Tokiwa has created here, but don't worry, it's going to be a hard sell to convince more casual readers to seek it out. One thing I think particularly like about this book is that even between characters, there are character profiles for all the notable characters where we meet so far. Not only that, but these profiles get updated with information as the story goes on. So if you've forgotten something important or relevant, they'll be there to give you a quick refresh. As previously mentioned, the Holy Grail of Eris Volume 1 comes to the West thanks to Yen Press and has been translated by Winifred Bird. The translation reads well with no issues to note, but one thing I did find strange was how Scarlet's dialogue was rendered in italics. Somewhat makes sense since no one but Connie can see or hear her, but it does get confusing at times. When dialogue in italics is also used to show a character's inner thoughts, to get around that Scarlet's speech is in a slightly different form than the rest of the text, which is a workaround I appreciate but remain unconvinced. Illustrator for the series had been handled by Yugi Nagi, who has many credited the name in Japanese, but nothing else in English. And I appreciated one of the color pages shows off all the main characters. There is also a 2-page spread for a particularly dramatic moment. The series is up to 4 volumes in Japan, and Yen Press currently have Volume 2 scheduled for release in July. It looks as if the main story ended in Volume 3, with the 4th book being an extra of some kind. so that may well be the end unless it sets something new up. Overall, Volume 1 of the Holy Grail of Eris proves an entertaining but slow read that puts a spin on a popular genre as long as you're prepared to stick with it. I think you should enjoy what the story has to offer, but it's a commitment that not everyone will be prepared to take on, in which case you might be better off waiting until it's all available in English and someone can speak as to whether the series continues to be as fun as this first outing. 7 over 10.